It's 14:15. You wake up on a hard and comfortable bed if you're lucky, but most likely on the floor. Your king, Henry V, is bored of conquering all of Wales and dislodging arrows from his cheekbone, so he decides to do what all British people dream about: take over France. His legal claim to be the King of France is through his great-great-grandfather, Henry III, whose mother was Isabella of France. And now that I'm saying all of this out loud, I'm realizing that this is just English anime.
I am Henry V. I must avenge my father and reclaim my rightful place on the throne, the French throne.
So he rounds up you, 12,000 men, a bunch of horses and trebuchets and early cannons, and puts you on to around 1,000 ships. You arrive in Chef d'Ab Show, which might be how you pronounce it, facing little resistance because although it is the 1400s, it is still France. You embark on a 10-mile journey to Harfleur, which takes about 2 weeks because as fun as giant machines that can destroy buildings are, they're very hard to move. Upon arrival, you and your men pull one of the most toxic strategies known to man: spawn camping. You surround the town, cutting off communication, not allowing food to come in. Then you just set up your tents and just endlessly mortar strike them with trebuchets. The French must have legitimately been in there like, oh la la. That's not French, is it? The meta, it is so bad right now. And give me a cig before these trebuchets destroys me. The good news for the British is that Harfleur surrendered on September 22nd, citing their reasoning as everyone's dying because we can't eat and we all have diseases. The bad news for the British was that everyone was dying because they couldn't eat and they all had diseases. After watching half of your comrades die, you look to your king for guidance. Henry V, being the military genius that he is, decides that instead of retreating back to England, you should all march to English-controlled Calais. That sounds really fun, said nobody, because most of the people that you were with were non-verbal by this point. You're cold, you're wet, you probably have dysentery, you have a whole year of funerals to attend, you're being followed by a French army that throughout the journey is starting to make yours look like it couldn't even conquer Ireland. Your daily meal consists of bread, if you're lucky, you're being redirected by French blockades, and worst of all, you're constantly being taunted by French messengers, forcing you to interact with French people. After up to 400 miles of harsh terrain and swampy French bullshit, you arrive in Azincourt, 45 miles from English-controlled tea-drinking freedom. Hey up. As you arrive in Azincourt, an army of 25,000 blocks your path, and although you're only 6,000 strong, your king has no intention of backing down. Communications with the French fall through on account of them being so confident that they're going to win, and Henry being so god-pilled that he actually believes that he can't die. You gather in your camp that's full of death, blood, and feces. The French talk about how barbaric the Englishmen are, while the English talk about how fruity and pretentious the French are. Well, some things just never change, do they? Stakes are put into the ground in front of where the archers will be sitting for tomorrow's battle. Foreshadowing. How did they do it? Might have been something to do with the stakes in the ground. You take one last look at the French army before settling into your muddy tent for the night. Meanwhile, the French employ a use of psychological warfare that's still going strong today: singing. You wake up and gather around your king. He gives an emboldened speech about the glory of battle and about how the Lord really wants England to control France right now. Which the one lucky part for you here is that you really did believe in all of that God shit, so you would have loved that. It's 7 a.m. While the French are busy arguing about who's going to get the king's ransom so they can spend it on cigarettes and baguettes, Henry orders his archers to move into range of the French infantry. Upon seeing this, they do the most rational thing they can think of and charge the archers head on, which actually worked. It didn't. You sit behind the archers, watching an onslaught of arrows come down at the opposing cavalry. After a few hours of unsuccessful attempts of the French to reach the front line due to mud, horse carcasses, and them just generally being pansies, they eventually push up to the archers. And now it's your turn to step in. You and 1,000 other foot soldiers storm to the front line in front of your archers to engage in hand-to-hand combat, most of the time quite literally. It wasn't very common for swords to realistically be used in these battles because most people had armor. A lot of the brawling was done literally hand-to-hand with grappling and pushing and shoving, and just generally people dying in the chaos of it all. You're knocked to the ground by an unmounted horse and just avoid drowning to death in the mud. Just as you're about to fade away, you see your king fighting at the front line with you. He takes a French axe straight to his helmet, which leaves a visible dent. And just the act of seeing this gets you so hyped up that you spring right back into battle and join alongside with your king. Archers who run out of arrows are now joining the battle with daggers alongside you. All you can hear is the clash of metal and screams. You're completely exhausted. It barely feels like you're even in control of your body. All that's causing you to keep moving is pure primal instinct. And just when you think there's no hope left, the French start to surrender. 7,000 of them dead to your 300. You thank God for letting you get through this. You're ordered to sing Te Deum, your favorite hymn. Your king orders the execution of the prisoners, which weirdly was actually considered controversial. I would have thought, you know, all the stuff that was going back then, that would have been, who gives a shit? But no, they were actually like, come on, guys, chivalrous code and everything. They probably didn't care that much. You gather your things, take part in a little bit of looting, and get on your way to glorious English-controlled Calais. Those big gates open, you get your tea. You've defied all of the odds and successfully invaded France. You have a great night's sleep, and you die of dysentery in the morning.